Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees, unfortunately, another one of these concert films dominate the box office, whereas other actual films, including an amazing new film from Toho in Godzilla Minus One, are at least projected to really not make much of a splash. Now, I personally am hoping that because the word of mouth on Godzilla has been very, very good, that more and more American audiences will actually show up to go see it, that the domestic numbers opening weekend will be a lot better than what it is currently looking like. But of course, when it comes to a film like this, there's just the old adage and the old truth that when it comes to films with subtitles for American audiences, there usually is a lot of the dragging of the feet, even for great films like that of Godzilla Minus One. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, a lot of people in a lot of different spaces, a lot of, across the spectrum, whether it be the actual, shill critics, right, that we really can't trust all that much, or the trustworthy critics, or whether it just be the general audience YouTube community, what we oftentimes are seeing is usually there's a lot of discrepancy or a lot of disagreement amongst these groups. But the fact that everyone is pretty much uniting around how great this movie is, hey, here's hoping that actually results in a film, at the very least, that can get into the double digits domestic for its opening weekend. This film, of course, already opening in Japan and now opening here in other areas. Before we go any further, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that 5 button, as we smash the rumble button as well, and also make sure that you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. I still don't even know if I'm even saying the right words there every time I say the word rumble. Every time I do that, I think to myself, man, I just feel like I'm getting worse and worse when it comes to actually pronouncing and enunciating those words. But as you can see right here, when it comes to the box office, according to Box Office Pro, Renaissance, a film by Beyonce, is expected to dominate the weekend. And I say dominate very, very light. I know River. I know she's not a fan of Beyonce either. $18 million is what that film is expected to bring in. This is going to be the second of the films from AMC Theaters distribution. Remember that they had also done the Eras tour from Taylor Swift, which had done very, very well. And so it looks like the Renaissance film is going to be the follow-up. It will be interesting to see exactly where the numbers match up between what Beyonce's film does versus what Taylor Swift's film does. But at the end of the day, personally, hey, at the one end of it, it is bringing people back to the theater. It is, of course, helping out theaters, especially when it comes to AMC's. However, it is also something to be said that a concert movie is once again going to be dominating the box office over brand new original films and even the second and third weekends of other films that had quite large budgets. We don't have a budget yet as of the recording of this video for the Renaissance movie. However, what we can imagine is it probably is somewhat similar to what was spent on the Taylor Swift film. That film had reportedly cost around $20 million to produce, and obviously that is a movie that would have been based off of a concert series that would have been a recording of the concert as it was going on, meaning that they would have already probably had made most of their money back, tons and tons of profits to boot. And so really any spending on it to actually record that concert really wouldn't be all that much, but probably spending still quite a bit just to make sure that it looks good, has high production values, all that kind of stuff. I know, River. I know. It's getting crazy out there. Speaking of crazy, we also have a pretty decent drop here for the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. As I had expected, we had a strong hold last weekend for this movie. Of course, the holiday frame definitely benefited it. I think we're finally starting to see kind of a course correction there, with it now dropping, or expected to drop around 55%. That's still not a terrible drop, right? We're still not seeing anything close to a drop on the MCU level, right, where you're seeing those drops in the 60s and 70s. This film only dropping 55% in its third week of release is definitely a good sign for it. Crossing $100 million domestic, crossing $200 million internationally. This film, again, looking to actually hit its just standard break even, though many have already pointed out that the film's financing has already made the film probably already profitable. But still, it's important just to be able to hit that standard break even point, so that way there's just no question about it whatsoever. I still, of course, am going to hold to the fact that this movie is so far below any of the other Hunger Games franchise movies, and it's still really hard to say that this is really the splash I think that they were expecting. You never want to have a movie where you're maybe barely breaking even or making just a little bit of profits, especially if you're trying to reignite a franchise. Typically, you want to be able to have a little bit more excitement around a movie, a little bit more passion around a movie, and I think right now we're seeing a pretty middling response when it comes to the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and again, you can just see how long that title actually is. The film Napoleon expected to drop 52%. This 3-hour drama is expected to take the number 3 spot, once again beating out Disney's Wish, which is projected to see a 56% drop. Now remember, Wish came in well underneath expectations last weekend, so the fact that it's dropping in the 50s is reason why it's actually, again, this is another really, really bad sign for it. Yes, you're not seeing the 60s and 70s percentage that we've seen from other MCU movies or for other Disney films that have come out over the past couple of years, but when you have such a low opening, right, when you have a drop-off like this is just not a good sign. It just means that it's not really holding all that well, and that it's only making $8.6 million, bringing its total domestic likely to $43.2 million. I would not be surprised if by week 3, we see kind of a similar situation as to what we saw with the Marvels, where they ended up dropping it from almost 1,000 screens in its third week because the film just was not actually performing. It's looking like Wish is going to see something very, very similar with that. And again, couldn't happen to a nicer company. And the sad thing is that coming in or expected to come in that number 5 spot, right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Had to count for myself. Yeah, the number 5 spot is Godzilla Minus One. And I say it's sad because this movie should be doing so much better. As you can see, the estimated theater count is going to be around 2,300. So definitely not going to have the highest theater count amongst the other wide releases. But it's a movie that I honestly just believe that you should go see. This is, it's not very often that I really have films that I advocate for, that there's films that I really, will passionately support, because there's just not a lot of really good films these days. But I will say, when it comes to history, I know, River, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy that this film is not expected to make more money, but I'm hoping that changes, right? I'm hoping that because there seems to be some buzz going around it, it seems that a lot of people are getting excited over it because of the amount of people who have been speaking in support of it, who have been able to actually go and see it. Some pretty big names in the YouTube community as well. And we all know that sometimes, right, even if at that very small ground roots level with various YouTube audiences, but also just the general audience as well, is able to kind of get around and rally around a film, sometimes that can result in a film doing a lot better than expected. I actually got to see this movie this past week, and of course, the poster that I have, oh my goodness, the poster's already fallen down. I didn't have it really propped up all that well, but I got to see this film in IMAX on its fan release, the pre-release, I guess you could say, the fan event version of the movie, and it was just, again, a fantastic experience. Great to be in there in the audience, and it was great to see an actual Godzilla film, as we have not really gotten any of that recently. If you've been following me on social media, you know that there are a lot of MonsterVerse people out there who are kind of going crazy over the fact that I've just, again, consistently called out the MonsterVerse and have said, yeah, you know what, instead of going to be excited about Godzilla vs. Kong, and again, if you are excited for that film, hey, I can't take that excitement away from you, but I do think that if you want more movies like Godzilla Minus One, which, again, to me, are a much stronger and a much more correlative throwback to the original 1954 Godzilla, right, a much stronger connection to just OG good, like, the highest rating, or I guess you could say, like, just the best version of Godzilla. If you want more of those movies, then we got to be able to show support to them, right? Otherwise, we are going to be stuck with not just, again, the visual effects that some people might like as far as the MonsterVerse films are concerned, but we're also going to be stuck with those same human stories, and I think most people will at the very least agree the human stories in the MonsterVerse film suck, whereas a film like Godzilla Minus One, it's not only got the great monster action, it's also got a great human story. So the reason why I'm saying that we should support this movie and that our money should go here instead is not because of where money goes as far as Toho is concerned. It's more about saying, if we want these kinds of movies to be made, if we want these kinds of stories, and if we want especially these kinds of Godzilla stories to be told, if we are fans of Godzilla, and again, I would never call myself a hardcore fan, but as I said, I grew up watching these movies. I watched these movies several times over, and so I always had this liking for them, right? Again, not a hardcore fan by any means, but I've always liked them, and this movie brought me back to my childhood. This movie brought me back to those times where I would watch the original films on TV, and I would watch them and just be able to sit back and enjoy them. Even though at the time, as a little kid, I had no idea that I was watching a terribly dubbed version of the film. I've, of course, grown since then, and luckily now can enjoy the amazing subtitled version of films like Godzilla Minus One. Just started Shin Godzilla last night, actually, and so far, about 20 minutes in, really, really enjoying that film also, though it's a little bit more fast-paced. This one, though, I think is pretty well paced, and I have a full review out on the channel. If you want to check it out, you can check out the video. It should be pinned either in this video, or at the very least, you can find it on my channel. But go see Godzilla Minus One. Let's see if we can get that number up a little bit. We also have Trolls Band Together dropping 61%. Again, this film is doing kind of in a, basically doing what it should be doing. As you all know, the second film in this franchise came out during the COVID year, had a very, very impressive run on PVOD. So it's really kind of hard to see the comparison. It's not doing nearly as well, I think, on paper as the first movie did. But of course, because you have that year in between, could have an impact. But we'll have to wait and see what the final number is to finally have an actual comparison. We also have a new film from Angel Studios. So Angel Studios, of course, well known at this point by many people for distributing the film. Right? They didn't make the film, but they distributed the film Sound of Freedom, which was phenomenal. This movie actually looks very, very interesting. Apparently, it's supposed to be kind of a modern day telling in a way of the Book of Job. And as someone who is someone who studied theology, has a degree in theology, I'm always very much intrigued by those kinds of stories. I do like some of the casting in the movie also, so I'm definitely looking to hopefully see this film now that baby girl, baby Sif is on a little bit of a different sleep schedule. I might have my evenings open now so that I can actually go see a movie here and there, like I was able to see Godzilla Minus One. But hopefully I can see this film. But 3.9 million, and again, for a movie like this coming from a very small studio, I think that is a very impressive start for that studio. Also, a new film, Silent Night. This is a film that some people have been talking about, been seeing some mixed things about it. So we'll have to wait and see what the general rule and what the general sentiment is about the film. But Silent Night is expected to come out. This looks like an interesting film at the very least. I think that the concept is that there's not a lot of talking in the movie, and so that can sometimes be a harder sell. But 2,000 screens, so a little bit more of a limited release there. But let me know your thoughts if you saw that film or if you have any interest in that film, because obviously I know very little about it. Then Thanksgiving is coming in for the 8% drop, so this film's still making money. Again, very impressive for a slasher film like this to be doing as well as it is. And then the Marvels, yes, that's right. Marvel is seeing another 59% drop. This film getting to $80.7 million and being at 2,300 screens. So dropping from probably another, close to 1,000 screens or so. This movie's bleeding money. This movie is being abandoned by Disney, which, hey, smart move on their part, because they should probably try to maybe get a tax write-off for this bad boy, because they're just not going to make any money off of it. It's going to be a massive $200+ million loss, and it's looking like $100 million domestic is probably going to be off the table for this movie. Going to the box office chart, because I love doing charting here over at OMB Reviews. The Shift only cost $6.5 million according to reports, and so its break-even point's not going to be all that high. I think that this film will probably be able to reach that, right, with a $3 million opening, and with the kind of fans and the kind of audience that supports Angel Studios releases. It would not surprise me to see this groundswell of support, this extended range right over the first few weeks of release. I know, River. And if the film especially is good, that's a very important thing, right? I don't know if The Shift's good. I have not seen it. I have not heard really a lot of buzz about it as far as people who've actually actively seen the movie, but it does look interesting. And so because, again, you say modern day adaptation of the Book of Job, and that has already piqued my interest. So I'm going to try and go see that to give my thoughts on it, but does not have to make a whole lot of money to break even. So we'll have to wait and see. As I mentioned, Renaissance, not really a film that has a budget yet at this point, but I think that's pretty much going to be pretty much moot. I think that the film's going to make profit no matter what, just because of the kind of film that it actually is. And I mentioned this in my review. Godzilla Minus One only costs $15 million. So not only are the effects impressive in their own right, and it's not perfect, right? There are definitely some issues that I have, specifically with the motion of Godzilla in the film. I don't know if I stressed that enough in my review, but there's moments where Godzilla, you're used to the traditional Godzilla where he's moving very, very slowly, but obviously can do a lot of damage. But then in this version of the film, right, you have that slow motion as well, but then you also have him moving very rapidly and quickly, and it was kind of jarring at times to see that motion and that motion change. But then you go back and remember that it only costs $15 million and how much you're enjoying the story of the movie itself. And those are the kinds of things that you can forgive with a lower budgeted movie, when you have those kinds of issues in there. And some people have said that they didn't find that there was a pacing issue with it. And I think it's just that it's a slower film. And so I think that there absolutely is this in the movie itself, right, being over 2 hours. You don't need it to be 2 hours. This film could have been 15 minutes shorter, and I think that would have made it that much more tight, and I would think it would have made that actually that much more watchable in that regard, specifically in regards to length. So it does drag, but for some people, you may not even be bothered by the drag, right? So it doesn't mean that the drag's not there, but obviously each person to their own as far as whether they are impacted by that or not. Either way, though, I gave Godzilla an A-. I think the film is fantastic, and so I think you should go see it. As you can see, it's already made $23 million, and that's just based off of what we have reported from its initial release in Japan. And I hope that this film continues to make a lot of money, because when we come to the holiday season, there's really not a whole lot of other films to look forward to coming out this year for the remainder of the year. Happy December, by the way, because we got, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which just looks terrible. This is projected to get $50 to $60 million, so higher than the Marvels. but not looking all that great. Interesting, too, that the film is tracking at this point in this capacity. This, of course, is a 4-day release, though, so we'll have to see whether the 3-day is going to be comparable to the Marvels or not. But still, the fact that this is kind of the only major film that we have really yet coming out, there's really not a whole lot then to be excited about in that regard. But what are y'all's thoughts about the box office? Do you think that Godzilla Minus One is going to come in higher? I think it'll hit double digits. I think that the type of support we're seeing kind of online, even though there's also a lot of hatred being put my way because of my critiques of the Monsterverse, kind of amazing. It's either a cult or it's a lot of bots or it's a little bit of both on social media. If you've been following me on X, follow me on Twitter. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. If you think it's going to hit double digits, how much do you think it's going to make? Again, I'm hoping that it's able to, if it's able to beat Wish, I'm going to find that as a win. I would love for it to be able to beat Wish and Napoleon, and heck, beat Hunger Games while you're at it. If the film could come in the number 1 spot somehow, that would make me thrilled beyond all belief, because these are the kinds of movies that we should be supporting. There's no agenda in it. It's just, hey, do you love Godzilla? Here is a Godzilla love story for you, right? Just, again, a love letter, rather, to Godzilla that's also going to give you a story that doesn't seem like it's coming out of a blender, as many of these other Godzilla films have been doing as of late. But let me know your thoughts about that and anything else I mentioned in the comments down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button, and smash the rumble button as well. Man, I think it's the Odyssey one now. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members for the month of November, starting off with Father Luca Illich, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, the name Eagle Rider. Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. Matt317, check out his Twitch channel. Laura, the Mother Major General Story. Sorry, I didn't have enough spirit fingers there. Mr. Roy and ZK Man, who can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below. You get access to things like the giveaways channel, a podcast that I try to do every single month with a bunch of other awesome YouTubers, and a plethora of other content. So go ahead and check that out if you want more. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.